I'm going to start 2023 with a video. Let's call it a conversation. So this is a one-way conversation to start the new year. One way meaning I'm doing all the talking. I have no one to talk to. I'm here alone in a tiny house that doubles as a studio. It's winter, a time where people are going through some strange things, a feeling almost of hibernation where you want things to kind of slow down because our world is so fast-paced. It's a spontaneous video because, I don't know, I had the notion to just go ahead and turn on a camera and start talking into a microphone, and I didn't even shave, so you can tell that this is not pre-planned. I didn't prepare for this. What I want to do is pull some quotes and some ideas and some thoughts from various sources, some of which I didn't write down. I might have picked it up in a book. I might have heard it somewhere, seen it somewhere, and picked up my notebook and jotted down this information. So I'd apologize to anyone that I don't credit with these thoughts or ideas. They are not my own. They're shared. They're taken from someone and kind of recycled through my own perspective. So what I do, if you've watched this channel at all, you'd know that I'm an educator. I teach high school. I teach art. I am also a working artist. I've tried to do my own freelance stuff. I've got my own personal projects going on. I've done a lot of commissions, and I exhibit my work in various places at popular culture events like Comic-Cons and whatnot. And I've been doing this for a pretty long time, so I've kind of developed some ideas or some opinions about it. Many of us who do a creative thing, like you do music or dance, theater, visual art, you've come in contact with people who have said to you, you're so talented, I wish I was that talented, you have such a gift. These are things that we commonly hear as artists from people who are observers, right? The person who owns that knows that they had to work and sacrifice and persevere to gain what people are referring to as talent is actually usually some sort of skill. And no one is born with a skill. Skills have to be obtained. They have to be learned. The difference between skill and talent. And what I want to do is go through and show some of the work that I've done, that I did. I actually came across an old sketchbook that was from probably the ages, I would say between 15 and 17 years old, 14 and 17 years old. So I would imagine I was probably early high school through graduating high school. And this was a time in my life where I didn't really devote a lot of effort into skill development. I had already kind of gone down that path as a younger person, as a younger child. And I kind of stepped away from it for several years during high school. I think that when you're that age, you come in contact with a lot of expectations and a lot of stigmas that are placed on you, or things that you feel like you should be or you shouldn't be. You kind of follow a path of compliance because you're part of a system, you're part of an education system, and compliance is often rewarded, and it's easy. It's easy to comply. It's easy to go with the flow. It's encouraged, and it also is sort of a seductive thing because you feel like, this is the path of least resistance. So when you are faced with those things, you may step away from something that requires perseverance and is filled with frustration, and that is actually true learning. And you step away from those things in favor of a system that you think is an easy fix, or maybe what you should be doing. I will go through all of my notes, and I will link to some of the quotes and some of the thoughts that I have to some books that I think would be worthwhile for you to pick up. Those links will be available as Amazon links, and they are affiliate links. So when you click on them, the channel does get a small amount of revenue, and they're all kind of like self-help. What I do is I take a self-help book and I put it through my filter as an artist and an educator, and I usually take pieces and write them down that I think applies to me, which I think could apply to people that are on a similar journey that I'm on. Here's a good one. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. And that is a quote by Pablo Picasso that I think is really just super deep and meaningful and great. So find your thing and then give it away. Finding your thing is the meaning of life, but the purpose of life is to then give that gift to the world, which I think directly applies to anyone in a creative field. It's easy to say for an artist who made millions of dollars in their lifetime to give things away when a lot of us are struggling to be compensated for the things that we're able to bring into the world. But I feel like if you force that too much, you're putting yourself in a bad spot. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the hard part, trying to figure it out and find that balance. I actually think that this might be a quote from Matthew McConaughey on YouTube, but the actor, I'm not sure. I could be wrong. You can do nothing and remain sure that you are miserable. You can also take a chance and do something that might make you happy. I did find a quote from a book called Solve for Happy, which I really enjoyed. He was an executive at Google, I believe, and wrote a book called Solve for Happy, kind of an engineer's mind. So very much different than my own perspective, but I saw a lot of crossover between his thoughts, the way that he thinks, and the way that I think. So really enjoyed that one. So check out that link in the description. And this one is about a perfectionist. A perfectionist is actually just afraid of failure. Some fear not having resources they need, so they accumulate excess and never feel secure. Some fear loss of freedom. They fear loss of choice. Some fear the unknown or failure or not meeting expectations. Some fear rejection. But you become so frozen with these ideas of expectations or lack of resources or insecurity or loss of control. Some people wait and wait and wait for the perfect conditions to take action, and the perfect conditions never reveal themselves. I've been a victim of that myself, is waiting for the perfect time to do something or to start something. And because you feel like that perfect time isn't there, you never end up doing the thing, and then you run out of time. And this one has to do with finding someone that you trust to connect with and help you along your path. In terms of training, I guess you could look at that as a comparison. Find someone you trust to train you and connect to them. It brings consistency to the process. It may not be the best or the fastest path, but it will be laser focused. Too often you are confused and overloaded with inconsistent, variable opinion. Yeah, that's a pretty big one. And inconsistent, variable opinion could be part of the definition of the internet, because we have so much overload when it comes to variables. And if you are searching that way, that's really no way to personalize your journey. So I guess you can compare it to people who go get a gym membership and people who get a personal trainer. You may find that you're not compatible with a personal trainer, but when you find one that you're compatible with, it will take you further in your journey than just kind of wandering about trying to figure things out on your own. Skill and talent are not the same thing. No one is born knowing how to ride a bike. I mean, that's something that you would train to do. That's a skill, right? So doing some sort of artwork to someone who doesn't know how to do it might seem like this magical thing that you just acquired. For example, if riding a bike was a talent some people had and some people did not have, if I watched someone ride a bike, I might stand there and go, I wish I was that talented to ride a bike. We all know that that's not true, and that's sort of ridiculous. So how is it that we refer to skills, other skills, some of them we sort of categorize them as being more magical or more gifted? Here's another good one from Seth Godin regarding the idea of trying something or working at something or persevering through something or building a skill. We are taught that failure is fatal because we live in an outcomes-based world. We quit too soon because we're often under the impression that if we can't win, why try? Another thing that we're kind of discussing here is the difference between learning and education. And I think this is really interesting. The idea that learning requires tension and discomfort. True learning, the requirement of that is that you work through the discomfort and the frustration, and what you're trying to accomplish is bigger than the discomfort. You're going to work through the pain because you would just stop if it hurt, right? If we start to work out and it hurts, we know that the reward, the thing itself that we're trying to accomplish is greater than the pain we're enduring to get there. If it wasn't, then why would anyone expose themselves to the discomfort and pain of lifting weights, exercising physically? It's the same thing with anything that you approach. Any skill that you want to acquire has to be more important or more valuable to you. It has to outweigh the tension. It has to outweigh the discomfort. So we're talking about education, where we've kind of gotten to, at least in my opinion with education, is that there are low expectations. We're constantly avoiding failure. Failure is avoided at all costs. And we're taught that failure is fatal. So by avoiding failure, lowering expectation, and introducing the idea of compliance, you're actually just pushing people through a system. They're not invested. So there's no investment in it. It's just a place that you have to go. You have to get an education to achieve this certain thing, or legally you have to get an education because that's what you're supposed to do. That's the law. Or people look at it as a gateway to something else, but they're not necessarily invested. So there's not a lot of learning that takes place unless people are bringing the investment. They're not there. We think that just keeping people in schools for long enough is going to force them to learn, cause them to learn, introduce them to learning. We hope that that's the case, and it does happen to some people, but it happens on your own. It's a very individual decision to decide that you're going to learn. So there is a difference between learning and education. I think we have to draw a line between the two, just like there is a difference between talent and skill. Probably at some point while I'm doing this in the video, rather than just show my face sitting here in a room talking to a camera, I will be throwing images under the camera of things that I found in the sketchbook that I dug up in my attic from when I was, a teenager. And then I'll also be putting some work that is more current, just as not as a way to show where I am, but to a way to show where I came from, because where I came from with my drawings, I think you would agree, is they're not overly impressive. They're not something that someone couldn't sit down and really put the hours in and be able to accomplish. So when we're talking about talent, talent is an insult. Art equals choice plus talent. So it's an inclination and an attitude. Skill is a learned practice thing that is hard fought and hard won. Many have talent, but few care enough to fully show up to earn their skill. Skill is rare. The hard part is becoming the person who goes to the gym every day. So to keep showing up every day. That is from the Seth Godin book, The Practice. Another cool quote: "The magic of the creative process is that there is no magic." Here's a good one on creativity. Creativity does not repeat, it rhymes. So I think there's a lot of conversation about learning how to draw, copying. And the truth is, it doesn't repeat, so you're not really copying, it rhymes. You're taking something that you admire, that you want to aspire to do, and what you create rhymes with it. It's not exactly that thing. So you may copy something to learn how to do or take pieces of it, but in the end, when you're creating your own work, it may rhyme with the previous work, but it doesn't repeat it per se. Another good one: you must do the invisible work in order to get credit for the visible work, or in order to reap the rewards of the visible work. That's a good one. Do the invisible to reap the rewards of the visible. So you have to put all this work in before you can then say, look it, I just created this masterpiece and I'm ready to receive the accolades from being able to accomplish this thing. A good one, another good one that I just kind of remember vaguely is when someone asked Picasso how long it took him to create a sketch on a napkin that he did in a cafe. He said 40 years or some number, 30 years. And they were like, you just did that while you were sitting here. But the point was, it took me my entire life to be able to take 5 minutes to put that thing on a napkin. So this napkin's doodle has taken me 40 years. The idea of talent, the word is talent, creativity, skill. We're bouncing around these words and it's really all semantics, but we're kind of talking about the same thing. So talent is an aptitude that is sparked to evolve into ability. And this is from a book called Creativity and the Campfire by Marco Bucci, which I think is an excellent book from a very talented artist and educator. So talent is an aptitude that is sparked to evolve into ability. We fast-track gifted students with attention, resources, accolades, compliments. But the lifetime of talent is short. Stigma sets in when you believe you will never draw as well as some other person. And we all have run into the some other person. So when you're a grade school student and you see this person who has this advanced ability because they've put in a certain amount of practice and they can do it, you are intimidated by that and you automatically turn off to the stigma of I'm not an artist, they're an artist. But the good news is that you can train through the stigma. So if you refuse to believe that that other person is better than you and will always be better than you, you can train through that if you want it badly enough. You could build those skills because nobody is born with skill. You can start with an inclination, a spark, but you have to power through the talent phase because it's really just inspiration. You have to kind of wait for that effect to wear off. And then if you still want to do it, then you continue to do it because there's always going to be someone who is bigger, faster, stronger, and better. in whatever area that you choose. But you can choose to give up and quit, or you can choose to persevere and become the best that you can be in a particular skill set. And what is your motivation for doing it? If you're doing it purely for the attention, you're doing it purely for monetary compensation, you're doing it because you have to, I think we have to change our mindset to do things because you can, not because you have to. So maybe changing your perspective, changing your perception to, I get to do this rather than I have to do this. Well, that was kind of a lot. There was a lot of words, and there will probably be more words, and I'll cut some of the words out. But hopefully you gained a little bit from my ramblings, and let's have a great start to the new year. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. There's a little button that they put on the laptop or something, and then they say click it, and then you can never even miss a video.
That's if you subscribe.